You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Well, hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda, and welcome to episode 248 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I'm back from the holidays with a bourbon-soaked story for y'all about recycled salad and avoiding the raw truth. But first, you have no idea how much I need some bourbon. So cheers, y'all. Whew. Oh, y'all, it is hard to get back into routine after the holidays. This is kind of brutal. And it's especially hard here in New Orleans because here's the thing. The holiday season, it doesn't end on January 1. Nope. This is only the beginning because, y'all, it's now officially carnival season. I gotta admit, I'm having a little bit of a hard time keeping pace. Now, it's true that this year is very different from Mardi Gras. Instead of parade floats, people are turning their homes and balconies into stationary floats of sorts. As I've said before, New Orleans is a city that always seems to find a way to celebrate, even in the hardest of times. I do have a confession to make, though. Through all of the little gatherings and events that we've been to and will go to, I kind of feel a little bit like a fraud. And it kills me to say that, but I do. And maybe I don't really mean fraud, but just kind of like somebody who's playing a part in some Southern Gothic version of a movable feast. Now, don't get me wrong. Every time we're with our friends or in a situation, I'm always very real about who I am. But let's face it, no matter how many times I use the word y'all, I'm not Southern. And despite all appearances, I don't always know what I'm doing. I mean, take for example something like football. It's fucking huge here. I mean, everybody watches football, and we've gotten into the routine of joining our friends at a bar every Sunday to watch the Saints. Now, give me a cocktail and I can navigate any situation except football because I have zero fucking clue what's going on. All I see are a bunch of burly dudes swarming a field and occasionally kicking shit. But I cheer or groan or yell like I'm supposed to, and always about 5 seconds later than I should. Because that's what you do when you're watching sports, and I am trying to fit in. But the truth is, the outcome of any sporting event, football, hockey, underwater basket weaving, it all has about as much importance to me as the fate of one of our Louisiana cockroaches. I just don't care. Still, I love hanging out with our friends, and I don't really think there's any harm in playing along when it comes to football, even if I am kind of faking it just a little bit. Fortunately, my lack of knowledge in the game isn't putting anyone in jeopardy. It's not like, say, lying on a resume, which, to be clear, I have never done. But that doesn't mean I haven't exaggerated my skills to get what I want. Like the time that a guy that I will call Rank connected with me through the Match.com dating site many years ago. He was a chef. His profile had him in a white jacket tossing a tomato in the air. He was tattooed and scruffy and the perfect kind of renegade. He said he was a sous chef, essentially third in command for a Chicago bistro, and that he wanted to find a girl who would match his appetite for food and life. Ooh, clever wordplay and tattoos? Oh, I was hungry all right, and Rank was exactly the meal I was looking for. I spent the next 10 minutes crafting the perfect response to him, one that balanced interest while glorifying what a catch I thought I was. And to do that, I got a little creative. Rather than offer him the raw truth, which was that I was a culinary school dropout, I name-dropped one of my former professors and said he taught me my way around a knife. I also claimed to have earned my coat working in a test kitchen, which was true enough. I just left out the part that it was as a writer, not a cook, and I neglected to mention that I'd also quit that. But here's the thing. Never once did I call myself a chef. And I could have. I mean, certain titles are far too easy to anoint yourself with, regardless of whether they've actually been earned. Seriously, y'all, just because you can identify a misused apostrophe does not make you an editor. Just like knowing how to cook al dente pasta does not make you a fucking chef. I didn't lie, I just effectively used hyperbole. This is the kind of thing that people do when they're attempting a connection with a new and full of potential mate. You want to make that common ground just a little easier to get to. And it worked. Rank responded, we traded a few notes, and met up a few days later for lunch. Everything about him screamed rock star, from his confidence right down to his crafty avoidance of offering any truly personal details about himself. Not that it mattered. Mostly I just wanted to wrap myself around him. That is, until the feelings kicked in. Fucking feelings ruin everything. If only we had just stuck to sex, we would have been fine. Just fine. Our fling would have eventually burned out, and we could have gone our separate ways without any hard feelings. But oh no, after turning 30, I had convinced myself that sex needed to go somewhere, that I was too old to be having random affairs. So I started asking more questions to try and get to know Rank better. And, likely because he enjoyed the sex, Rank provided answers. They were Swiss cheese answers at best, but enough for me to presume that the guy was either recently laid off or fired, it was kind of hard to tell, and that he was struggling to make ends meet. Which in my stupid little brain made sense. It explained why we spent so much time at my place and why he never seemed to want to cook for us. I mean, isn't that one of the great advantages of dating a chef? You know, you get these great meals made for you at home. Yeah, he never wanted to do that. He always left the cooking up to me, and I figured it was because the poor guy was angry at being unemployed and had lost his confidence. It was a headspace that I had personally been in countless times, where I was so dejected and tortured by my lack of work, I took it personally and stopped writing altogether. What Rank needed was an opportunity, something that would remind him of his love for cooking and in turn demonstrate what an amazing partner I am outside of the bedroom, which would then lead to him falling madly in love with me. I decided to quietly put a few job feelers out to my contacts. I knew it was probably a bit of an overreach. I mean, seeing as how we hadn't officially coupled beyond fucking yet, but my tainted altruism knew no bounds. And amazingly, within just a few days, I actually got a lead. From a musician, of all people. He played in the house band for a suburban banquet hall which desperately needed kitchen staff for a large wedding that weekend. Apparently, they'd take anyone, a fact that should have raised my eyebrows. I was just so jazzed to have found a gig this quickly, I gave the venue a call and put Rank's name in as a swing cook. All he had to do was show up on Saturday morning, work the event, and he'd get paid in cash at the end of the night. If all went well, it could lead to a regular position. Anger was not the reaction I expected when I related the news to Rank that Friday. I mean, surprise, yes, maybe a few questions, and then a wild round of gratitude sex, if that's a thing. But no, Rank was pissed off, and suspicious. First, he raged that the job would be a huge step down for him. And I knew this, but I figured being a swing would let him work the entire kitchen, which would be better than being stuck in dessert plating or something like that. Then he wanted to know why I thought I needed to test him, which was a weird thing to ask, especially when all I wanted to do was get him out of a rut. Which I said, along with, dude, I don't care if you take the gig or not, but there's $200 in it if you can just choke down your ego for a few hours. His tone changes when I mention the cash, and suddenly Rank is more expansive. He thinks for a couple of minutes and then grabs my hand and apologizes for being a dick. He says, "Baby, I'm so rusty right now. I don't know if I can do this alone. Would you come with me?" Well, shit. There were those stupid feelings fucking everything up again. Because as much as I hate to admit it, my dumb heart melted just a little bit when Rank wanted me to be with him. So much so that I started to consider it, despite knowing full fucking well I had zero qualifications to do so. I could have said that the banquet hall had a full staff. But after having talked with the manager, I knew they needed everyone. Grill chefs, dishwashers, all of it. Rank would see I was full of shit the second he walked into an empty kitchen. Of course, I also ran the risk of him knowing I was full of shit when I crumbled under the pressure of working in a full-service kitchen, which was pretty much what prompted me to flee culinary school in the first place. Still, that $200 sounded pretty fucking sweet to a chick who was still living paycheck to paycheck. And I could be the hero to Rank. So the big question was, what lie do I see through? Y'all, I went all in. I did. And what can I say? I wanted the payoff. We met at the banquet hall the next morning, both of us jittery and anxious and donning our white coats. If Rank's coat seemed just a little too white and maybe just a touch too crisp, I never noticed. I was too busy rehearsing my embellished culinary accomplishments in my head, just in case I needed to justify my presence. Fortunately, the managing chef was so desperate for extra help, he just threw us right into the fire, no questions asked. He sent Rank over to the grill and me to prep with the instructions to figure it out and get it done. And as I situated myself in the unfamiliar kitchen, it quickly dawns on me why this facility was so hard up for help. The place was a disaster. It's funny, you see shows like Kitchen Nightmares and Restaurant Impossible, and between all of the bacteria buildup and rat droppings, you can't help but wonder what's going on behind the doors of your own local restaurants. After being in this particular kitchen, I gotta say, I rethought dining out for a long time. It's not that this place was noticeably unclean. I mean, all of the appliances and tools were spotless. It's more the unsavory practices of a very dirty managing chef. Apparently, he'd only been in charge for a month, and in that time had either terrorized or disgusted most of the kitchen staff into quitting. Only a line cook and the kitchen porter remained. Otherwise, they'd been managing on help from the serving staff and suckers like me and Rank, who were lured in with a cash promise. All of these choice details were dumped on me by Wayne, the sole kitchen porter, as I confronted 50 pounds of potatoes that weren't going to peel themselves. Wayne, meanwhile, is rooting through several large plastic bags of what appears to be pre-made salad. He's using his ungloved hands to sift through all the lettuce and croutons and carrot shavings. And every time he finds a cherry tomato, he plucks it out and tosses it into a bowl. The sight is just too odd to let go, so I ask, "What are you doing?" Y'all, he was recycling salad tomatoes. Their genius managing chef hadn't ordered enough for the day's service, so he had requested that all leftover salad from the night before be saved, and any intact tomatoes were to be washed and reused. My stomach is churning as I see that there is still salad dressing clinging to the lettuce leaves. And I say, please tell me that this was from an unused batch. And Wayne just shakes his head and he says, no. Everything in those bags had been scraped from people's plates. Oh, I have to fight the urge to vomit right there into those potatoes when Wayne adds, yeah, you should see what he does with leftover salsa. Ugh, so gross. Over at the grill, Rank is getting updated on the menu. It would be a plated dinner service for about 100 wedding guests. There would be that recycled salad to start, then lemon chicken or fish with mashed potatoes and either roast squash or seared green beans. Kids would be served chicken tenders and mac and cheese. It really was as simple of a menu as you could get, and I breathed a little bit easier when I learned that it would all be cooked in advance and kept warm until plating. Without the threat of a full restaurant service looming over my head, I started to feel more confident that I could handle things. Unfortunately, the more pressing and sadly unasked question was, could rank. He had been instructed to start with the chicken breasts, which pretty much just meant seasoning them, searing both sides, and then dumping them in a large pan to finish in the oven. The other cook would manage the sauce. But Rank wasn't happy with his instructions, and within minutes was yelling at the cook about how he outranked him and shouldn't be expected to do this kind of grunt work. He kept insisting, "It's my job to oversee your cooking." Now, him and the other cook are nose to nose and way too close to insanely sharp cutlery for comfort. So Wayne and I rush over to intervene. He pulls the cook off to the side to calm him down, while I turn to Rank and I ask, "What the hell is your problem?" And he's all, "I know how a kitchen runs. This is bullshit." His refusal to make the chicken is so dramatically unreasonable, I kind of step back for a minute. Because even if your only experience with a professional kitchen comes from watching fucking Ratatouille, you know that teamwork is crucial. There is no place for that kind of macho posturing, not when you have 4 people preparing food for 100. And suddenly, I realize, Rank doesn't know that. Because Rank is not a chef. I call him out, and at first he refuses to own up. So I grab a pan, I slam it on the stove, and I say, "Fine, make me some fucking chicken." He kind of pales, but he grabs a hunk of raw chicken with his bare hand and throws it in the pan. Wrong. With that same hand, he reaches into a pile of utensils to fish out a large spoon. Wrong. He's about to fire up the stove full blast when I put him out of his misery, and I say, "Dude, don't you know how to cook anything?" Simple answer, no. His profile photo, faked. That chef jacket, a Halloween costume. And his plan, seducing a chick who thinks chefs are sexy. He just didn't think it would go this far. The first thought to run through my head is, fuck, I did it again. I let those fucking feelings completely override all of my common sense. And for what? A brick wall future built on lies? And then I had to reluctantly admit, I lied too. Not exactly for the same reasons, and definitely not as egregiously, but still. I decided to come clean to Rank, not because I owed him anything, but because I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't. And the guy doesn't care. He just says, "Look, neither of us belong here. Let's just cut our losses and get the fuck out." Had we been anywhere else, I would have done just that. But there was some chick's wedding on the line, and I wasn't about to fuck up her big day just because I couldn't get my own love life in order. So no, dude, we're not going anywhere. We got ourselves into this. We're gonna get out. Now you go start peeling those fucking potatoes, and then you're gonna shred those 10 pounds of fucking cheddar while I figure out this goddamn chicken. Oh, I'll tell you, those next 5 hours were a blur. More breasts passed through my hands than at a strip club. And unfortunately, I mangled a lot of them. Of course, in this crazy kitchen, nothing got thrown away. Oh no, I was told in no uncertain terms to scrape off the burn, re-sear, and then toss them into the bake pile. It was sweaty, demanding, and chaotic work. And as I took a break out on the dock and back to slug back some water, I understood completely why so many chefs turned to stimulants to keep pace. Rank wasn't faring nearly as well. That dumb dildo had managed to gouge open his finger on an industrial-sized box of tinfoil. And rather than send him to the ER, the head chef squeezed super glue into the gash, pinched it shut, and then sealed it with duct tape and a rubber glove. It worked well enough to allow Rank to keep working, and by 5 p.m. we were ready to begin plating. Chef set up prep tables for us to create an assembly line of sorts, with each of us adding to the plate before passing it up to Chef for garnish and hand off to the waitstaff. All Rank had to do was slop out a pile of squash with the chicken or green beans with the fish. I mean, this is work that convicts and cafeteria workers manage every day. You'd think you'd be able to get through that without fucking it up. But no. As plates start passing up to Chef, he immediately sees that Rank is plating the wrong vegetables. I'm pretty confident his yells could be heard all the way into the ballroom as he lays into Rank. And he's screaming, "Don't you know the difference between chicken and fish, you fucking moron?" From the look on Rank's face, I don't think he did. And part of me wants to laugh. I mean, how big of a cockmuppet do you have to be to not know a hunk of chicken when it's in front of you? But then, seeing the humiliation wash over his vapid face, I started to feel a little bad for the guy. He was in way over his head. Well, that was partly my fault. Ugh, those fucking feelings. They started plucking at my conscience so much that against every bitter bone in my body, I found myself opening my mouth and saying, "It's my fault, chef. I told him the wrong plating combo." Yeah, that earned me a fistful of squash splattered against my chest, along with a grateful nod from Rank. Thankfully, the rest of the service passed without incident. After cleaning and righting the kitchen, Rank and I met Chef in his office to collect our pay. Oh, I earned it. I really earned it. I mean, I felt so proud of myself for having seen all of this through, even if it was based on bullshit. So I grab my envelope, and Rank does too, and we dig into them, excited to see not $200, but $100. And before either of us can open our mouths to ask why and where the rest of our pay is, Chef says, "Consider that a stupidity tax. Now get the fuck out of my kitchen." Much as I really hated that guy, I had to admit, he wasn't wrong. That ended my brief romance with Rank, and to his credit, I noticed that he soon changed his dating profile picture to one without a chef coat. My own coat got tossed into the trash. I had no intention of ever putting it back on, for anyone. Of course, I have to question exactly what I learned from all of that, seeing as how I'm about to put on a Saints jersey to watch them play the Bears. Still, as long as I'm not in the game, I think I'll be okay. Cheers, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Unwritable Rant Podcast. Now, don't forget to join me every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. I host a little show that I like to call Bourbon Soak Live, where we feature cocktails and conversation. We always have really fun and occasionally filthy conversations, so don't miss out. Join us on Monday night, 7 p.m. on my YouTube channel. And of course, there is always the unwritablерant.com, where you can find back episodes of this podcast and a little link where you can buy me a drink. So I have a football game to watch, y'all. I hope you have a great week. I'll be back next Sunday to chat with you some more. Cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablerant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter at Morning Neurosis.
Girl, you was pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.